Okay, so Superman 2 is the next movie in this retrospective series we are taking a deep dive look at. This is the return of General Zod. Now, if you remember in the first movie, Zod was trapped in the Phantom Zone at the start of it, but he returns as the villain of the second movie. Now, I'm going to tell you guys my thoughts on this movie, but I'm also going to compare certain elements and certain characters to Man of Steel. Now, I feel like the first movie, Superman, and the second movie of Superman, you can compare those movies with Man of Steel because they have such similar story threads and similar characters and themes. So I feel like we can compare and contrast when it comes to those particular movies. So I'm feeling like I'm going to do Superman the movie, Superman 2, and then Man of Steel retrospective, and we'll do those three straight off the bat, and then we'll get into 3, 4, and continue that way. But let's get into Superman 2 right now. Smash that like button, click subscribe, and let's do this.
I believe this is your floor.
Oh, thank God.
Okay, so Superman 2. Look, you guys all know my opinion on the first Superman movie. I have some issues with it. I'm not particularly, like a gigantic fan of it, but it is a decent film that is a product of the time. So Superman 2 was the sequel. This is where we get to see General Zod come back. And I tell you what, Superman 2 is a very interesting film for me. Because there are some things that are absolutely, and when I mean absolutely, I mean, oh my god, I think they're actually incredible things in this movie that are so good. And then there's just some other things where I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's a bit of a letdown. And it's weird and interesting because, let's start off with, the strongest part of this film, for me, is actually Lois Lane and Clark Kent and Superman. That relationship. I feel like that is easily the best part of this film. I absolutely ate up everything when it came to do with that relationship, with Lois actually not being a dumbass and actually figuring out that Clark is Superman. I really enjoyed that aspect as well, because it shows Lois in a new light. Because in the first one, I felt like she was a bit too dumb, where in this movie, she's instantly putting pieces together. Every time Superman shows up, Clark isn't around. That is odd. And then when she's willing to bet her life on it, and then she's like, oh, maybe Clark isn't, and then he falls in the fire. And then she finds out he can't actually burn his hand, so therefore he is Superman. But I like that element. I like their relationship of the building blocks that were in place in the first movie to now. It worked so well. And I love Clark's character arc that he goes on in this movie as well. This guy who's got the world at his feet. He has all these abilities. He can literally do anything he wants. And he is willing to give up everything. All of his powers, his past, his heritage, in order to be with the one person he loves. I absolutely love that. I love that character arc that he goes on. It's fantastic. So when him and Lois are on screen, I thought their relationship was fantastic. Is it the greatest superhero relationship on TV or on film history? No. I still think there's other particular movies and shows that do that relationship better. But this is definitely one of the stronger ones. And I think when it comes to Man of Steel, while I like the Man of Steel relationship with Lois and Clark in that, I do actually have to say Superman 2 handles that relationship better. I really do. It feels like they actually dive into it a lot more and actually go into depth to why they are falling for each other and how they actually feel and what Clark is willing to give up in order to be with the person he loves. Now, when we get to General Zod, man, I have a lot of things to say about this when it comes to General Zod. For me, when we are comparing General Zod from Superman 2 and Man of Steel, there are light years difference between these two characters. For me, Man of Steel handles General Zod in such a great, fantastic way that I absolutely love. I think everything about that General Zod in Man of Steel, in Snyders' vision, is 125 million% better than this General Zod. And there are reasons why I believe that. Firstly, the motive. I really do not like the motive of Zod in Superman 2. His motive is just to rule. It's so bland and boring. It's so like, yo, all I want to do is rule, man. That's it. And like, this whole idea of Zod fighting Superman at the end with the climactic battle and getting tricked so easily, going to fight Superman on his own terms, on his own home soil, to like, it's like, come on, man. It just felt like, what are you doing? And then you have Lois Lane there, and he's not utilizing that to his advantage to get Superman to submit to him. So I really feel like that element of Zod is just lacking, where in Man of Steel, Zod knows his weakness. He knows Superman's weakness. Superman is looking to save everyone. So what does he do? He doesn't leave the city. He fights him in the city because he knows that it's at his advantage. Zod is at the advantage when they're fighting in the city. And Zod's motivation in Man of Steel is so much better because, see, when you're doing a villain, to make a great villain, you need to have a key element. They need to see themselves as the hero. So what are some of the great villains in the world? Darth Vader, he thinks he's the hero of the story. He thinks he's bringing balance to the Force by turning to the dark side and bringing peace to his new empire. That's why he's such a great villain. Thanos, why is he such a great villain? Because he thinks he's the hero of the story, because he's saving the universe. By snapping half of existence, he's bringing balance back to the universe. General Zod sees himself as the hero of Krypton. He is the savior. He is the one that is going to bring Krypton back. And his whole motive is, I only exist to protect my people. I only exist to save Krypton. I only exist to bring Krypton back. When that is completely gone, he has nothing left. That is a great villain. This General Zod, on the other hand, just wants to rule. That he doesn't care. That's what I mean. He's one-dimensional. There is no layers to the character, where Michael Shannon's Zod in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel has layers to him. Makes him compelling. Makes you go, holy crap, this villain is scary, because he thinks he's the hero when we know he's not the hero. So when you are handling villains, you want to make them three-dimensional. You don't want to make them one-dimensional. I feel like Zod is that in Superman 2, and he just is so much, like, he's just dumb. He falls into the trap so easily, and it's just kind of like, ugh, come on. And obviously the fight isn't going to be as flamboyant as the one in Man of Steel. Like that, I'm not even going to bother comparing the fights, because Man of Steel's fights are superior because of the technology, because of the whole availability of fight choreography people. You're able to get stunt people in to do it. They didn't have all that back then. So I'm not going to knock the action in this, in Superman 2, because it is, like I say, a product of the time then. They didn't have the ability to create what we can create in Batman vs. Superman, in Man of Steel, in the new Avengers and everything like that. We just didn't have that back then. So I'm not going to criticize the fight, even though it's not like heavy action packed. It is very much like, bam, and then it's like, oh, you know, it's that type of action. It was made in the 80s, man. Like, come on. You've got to cut it some slack. Now, some of the other characters, the sort of minions of Zod, I think that the girl is actually not that great. I do feel like the one in Man of Steel, that is next to General Zod in that one, is so much better and has more layers to her. Where I feel like this one, she's just kind of like there, and it's weird. And she's like, she's got this real fascination with like saying, "Oh, he doesn't take orders, he gives orders." It's like, yes, love, we get that. Like, annoying. And then don't even get me started on the bigger dude. Oh my god, like, do you want to make a more animalistic dude that just doesn't speak or anything? He just grunts. It's so frustrating. He's just in there, he's like, "Ugh, ugh." It's like, so he's just dumb? Like, that's literally meathead dumb. It's stupid. Like, give these characters some sort of idea of how to fight or something like that. Like, it's just weird. And then some of them have weird superpowers as well. Like, I didn't know you could with the pick people up with the thing and throw them and stuff like that. Like, it's just weird. Like, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But Lex Luthor in this movie. Let's talk about Lex. Oh man, I'm not a big fan of this Lex. I really am not a big fan of this Lex, and it feels too comedic for me. He doesn't bring the presence. Like when he's on screen, I don't feel like, hey man, this guy could take Superman at any moment. I don't feel like he could outwit Superman at any moment. Lex is able to defeat Superman at times because of his brain. And he also has that factor of when he walks in the room, he's like, yo, that's Lex Luthor. Like, you don't want to get on the bad side of him. Like, he's got that aura about him, but here he just doesn't have it. And I don't feel like he's smart. I feel like he's just dumb and he thinks he's smart. He's that typical person who acts smart but isn't smart. That's what he comes across as. And I'm not a huge fan of him. I really am not. And it's just kind of like, yeah, it's very lackluster. Really is. But look, Superman 2 for me, it's got great elements when it comes to the actual relationship side. Like I never thought I would say that about a movie in the superhero genre is I prefer the romance side when it comes to Lois and Clark. I prefer that dynamic over anything else in this movie. I just feel like everything when it comes to General Zod, comes to the motive, comes to everything like that, just really lacks and is all one dimensional. And I just feel like Man of Steel handles the General Zod storyline way better. And it actually, Zack Snyder actually gave Zod layers. And I just feel like here, there is no layers to their character. It's all one dimensional. But for me, Superman 2, it's not the best, is it? It's not. I feel like half of it's great, half of it's very bad. But that's just me. And again, this is a product of the time as well. So I'm not gonna like talk about like the visual effects or anything like that. Like they don't hold up. You can clearly tell that they're on wires. You can tell everything. The movement is so different to when we watch Man of Steel. And when we do Man of Steel next, we will talk about the differences in visual effects and how different Man of Steel is compared to these ones when it comes to being able to create more realistic vibes rather than this fantasy sort of thing where you're kind of looking at it and going, yeah, they aren't flying. And another thing that did annoy me in this one is there's a lot of flying in here. And there's just scenes where they're just flying. And I'm kind of like, okay then. But hey, it is what it is. Let me know in the comments below, what did you guys think of Superman 2? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Smash it down in that comment section below. Smash that like button for me and click subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay safe. Peace out.